let's dive right into it. I've presented this to a number of different professional individuals, so from architecture to engineering to also contractors who do design build type of projects. Digging right into collaboration for Revit, one thing out of three is what we're going to touch on right now, accessing the project data. So today's presentation will include a little bit of a PowerPoint just so we can get through some standard high-level information, but then I'll actually show you some practical applications as it relates to Revit and what you see on the web. But overall, out of the three main areas we want to touch, accessing the project data is the underpinning of collaboration for Revit. So even though the title includes the word Revit in it, or the name Revit, one of the other two parts that we'll talk about will include how the rest of the team gets to play in the sandbox with us Revit folks. So this includes, you know, project architects or engineers, or the contractors and their subs who possibly need to see the data but have no relevance or no knowledge of how to use Revit or AutoCAD. They just want to see the data. And so that's going to be one of the major components on how does the rest of the team play in this environment and give their contribution to the project. But this first part really is keyed into Revit. It is all about Revit, but I wanted to set the table a little bit there, not to disparage the rest of the team. The idea of collaboration for Revit is really Revit and central files living within the cloud environment. So if you're an office, maybe you're new to the whole Revit conversation. I have many contractors who have heard me talk about collaboration for Revit, and they really don't understand that, what? You can have a Revit central file, and let me get this, you can have more than one person working on that file at the same time. You know, that's new to me. That's a revelation. But for architects and engineers using Revit for quite a while, there's nothing new to a Revit central file that you don't know already. Revit central files are meant just to do that. You have different firms overall working on central files today. Now, let me kind of put this into a caveat. The central files today, let's pick on firm A. Firm A has multiple locations. They have a Chicago, they have a Boston location, and today they would use a central file, and the central file itself, maybe it's going to be living in the Chicago office. But Boston also wants to play in the sandbox with that central file and have their team reach that central file. So it's easy within a firm for the most part with different geographic locations, because most firms these days, they usually have some kind of a VPN network that somebody's managing that allows, you know, multiple offices to see single servers. And some of those firms today, if they're doing that, then they're actually using a technology that's been in place for a long time called Revit Server. But the challenge remained in those past years of how do you let firm B, which possibly is the engineering firm, access to at least either link the file from that main office, or even access it directly, right? But what ended up happening was there's always a firewall between outside firms, for good reason, and what would have to happen is the VPN connection would have to be shared from that firm to allow them to be able to see, you know, at least the central file. So where we go with collaboration for Revit is the subscription of, and let's just call it C for R. Okay, it's easier for me just to say that. The C for R files, this could be an engineering file, this could be an architecture file, this could be like engineering S, and this could be an engineering M file. Holistically as well, though, it could be one single file, to tell you the truth. But these files are living on the team, the BIM 360 team cloud. The service of C4R is resident on each of the local computers. So there are services running on each of the computers through Revit, right? Everybody's got their license of C4R who's authoring in Revit that need to access the central file on their local machines, but then team is where the central file is going to live. And the summary of what I was describing for VPN is right here. And yes, if you want this PowerPoint to take home, or if you want to look at the broadcast later on, this is all yours if you want. But this is the way that those firms used to do it. I said they would have like a hardware server, they would do VPN, and pulling all this stuff together, you would almost certainly need an IT staff. So don't make any bones about it. People that are doing this today without collaboration for Revit, they're paying money through time and hardware to get that done. But this is the funny piece here. The project manager would have to also take a leap of faith that this system would always be active and ready to go. And you know, there's a lot of trust that gets put into play to doing the old way of doing it. Today, there is a bigger trust that takes place with C4R, and within that, this is where these teams, again, authoring people on Revit need to license C4R, and there's no limitations on project size, data uploads, data downloads, and stuff. It's quite dynamic in that respect. So it negates the IT labor, the expensive hardware. Please forgive me, take this with a grain of salt. If you're the IT person, most IT find themselves here when I talk to project managers, and this is the project manager, that poor soul that needs to jump through hoops sometimes. I prefer to have IT do great IT things and let the project themselves drive within the Autodesk framework without too much, you know, hand-holding from IT. The project managers feel more comfortable, and in that case there, the project managers can then further explore you know, the use of some built-in technologies that come with C4R. This part, I said there's going to be 3 parts of the conversation. We're on part 1, but part 3 of what I'm going to talk about is how C4R leverages the team cloud site for the purposes of viewing markup and comments. That's really important. A project is only as good as the team that's involved with it, and where team comes in is on the strength of this viewing and markup capabilities. So let me put my geek hat on just for, you know, 1 minute. This is me over here, and I've got to say, Mark knows what I look like, and I don't have quite as much hair, but you know, I'm handsome for at least for this next minute in a caricature. I'm working in Revit today, and where we go with Revit is we build this file, and let's pretend this file is 100 megabytes, right? So when we first launch collaboration for Revit and we want to get this file up into the cloud, it will push the full file up into the BIM 360 team cloud. And let's say I've got Mark or Sarah, and they're my structural engineer, and this is Mark, and this is Sarah, and she's got wavy hair today, and they are the structural engineers on this file. They will have a couple of choices. They could either link my file into their work session, or if we come to an agreement early in the project to say, hey, let's do a central file sharing amongst the 3 of us. And we can do that. We can all work on the single file. There's a number of firms that do either or, but make no, where we're going with this story here is 100 megabytes gets pushed up once, and that's it. The changes, so for example, this column that they added, I would only download those changes, the deltas, as it relates to change management in a file. So for example, I gave you the example of 100 megabytes gets pushed up once. If I add a door and they want to see my latest changes, that door really is the delta between 100 megabytes and this door is maybe only like a meg big or a meg in size based on the change. So really, it's only that door that gets pushed up and propagated to the cloud. And to clean this slide up a little bit, this is what you would also need to know just from the logistics. You're always working on your file. You are always working on a locally cached file, just as you would today if you were doing a Revit central file deployment. Revit central files are never really modified unless you're running the Revit central file explicitly. Typically, in the environment of multi-sharing, you are running a locally cached version or a local file of the central file. It's exactly the same here. In collaboration for Revit, there is a built-in software accelerator, and it gets pushed like that. So now you're, 2 or 3 minutes smarter than you were a second ago on Revit central files and collaboration for Revit. Here's part 2 of the 3 parts, enhancing the communication. And you should see that and know that Revit was not ever meant or intended to have instant communication through any of these mechanisms like Link or Skype. We built into collaboration for Revit a tool called Communicator. And Communicator looks just like this right here. And within the project environment, you'll see that I see my 2 project contributors. They add chats to the Communicator through the Communicator. It's simply you type in your chat here, and then you would press enter, and then the chat gets propagated to the chat list. And then you can also use these friendly tools down here to do screen captures or to share a file across the entire project team. And when new people are invited to the team and they launch Revit in collaboration for Revit, you will see their friendly face pop up right here. And then this is why you could start these chats. Now historically, this is the relevance to maybe this kind of a team chat. If I'm the project manager and I do run Revit, and I've been away from the office all week, today's Thursday, I come back, historically I can come and review the chats which have taken place throughout this week. So this is good for me because these chats are all about small, incidental, but important conversations. It's like, hey, Mark or Sarah, did you guys add a piece of cross bracing in front of my curtain wall panel right here? And they respond back, no, we added it to the next bay over. Go up to the web and take a look at it for yourself so that you can see if it's okay. That's what these chats are really meant for. It's like quick one-off conversations. More bigger decision making can be done through the team website or through other mechanisms as well. The contextual awareness, as well as the integrated work sharing activity feed, if I put this into plain English, it basically means that who's saving now? And it's easy to see through the Communicator window. Tom is synchronizing now. Emily synchronized back when this took place and she was completed. Jack tried to do this, but his save to central failed. He might have lost his internet connection, or somebody bumped him out of the queue, or his computer shut down, or mysteriously went onto some kind of a diagnostic mode. Stuff happens. So in this case here, you can actually see who's saving now, and what that negates is me clicking on the Save to Central while Tom is clicking on Save to Central. So I would resist clicking on Save to Central while I see somebody synchronizing, because what will end up happening is bottlenecking. And my computer will kind of start wanting to save to central, but it's taking longer than expected. And we've had people with Revit central files saying, yesterday I saved to central, it was done in like a minute or 2. Today I clicked and I waited like 5 or 6 minutes before it was done. Like, what is going on? And that's the bottlenecking that I'm talking about, where it kind of gets throttled a little bit. All right, so I'll turn off the fire hose for a second. This is part 3. This is the connecting the entire team. BIM 360 team, as mentioned, is where the files will reside. not just the Revit files, but you can see Revit all the way through any of these file formats for the purposes of viewing. And you might be thinking, oh, okay, well, we've got these other non-Autodesk products where we use for file viewing, like we use a file viewer for PDFs because that's what we share during design time. Or for commenting and markup, we share again a PDF and we get comments and design review through that. Well, put the brakes on that for a second, because this is where some huge differentiators really come from Autodesk as it relates to any competitive softwares that are out there in cloud services. So BIM 360 Team is the standalone piece. It comes with C4R, but those people that are not using Revit or AutoCAD need their license of Team to do the sharing, viewing, and marking up. And this is where the rubber really meets the road in a very good way. If I've got a project manager or a project architect or a principal or a client that want to see models or drawings and mark them up, fantastic tool in Team, because this helps explicitly during design and throughout design. Design markup and 2D or 3D viewing capabilities built into the Team site. So it's the cloud website. There are no additional plugins meant to be installed. You don't install anything on your computer. You just get an Autodesk single sign-on, an SSO. So everybody's mother and dog can get a single sign-on, but when you are activated with a Team license, your single sign-on would bring you to this Team site, and your project team, when they save and publish from Revit, this will save and publish out a RVT file. And you folks would then be able to redline and mark up this RVT file and add your comments to this comment field right here. So this is all great and powerful now, because you no longer have to create a PDF markup set for the purposes of design. Yes, I'm sure there's somebody going to say that we typically need to still create PDFs for contractual documentation, for the stamped drawings. And yes, that still may be the case, but down the road, when you make that contract set, then you can make your PDF. But in the meantime, you can save time on just publishing RVT files, because we will track version 1, version 2, version 3 as time goes on. As we know, designers, like, we hammer down changes time and time again. We go through versioning. The live review is a direct competitor feature that we do very well inside of Team. So live review is me. So I'm on this desktop computer, and I call up Mark and Sarah and say, I'm going to send you a link, and you guys can open it on your favorite device, and you will be able to camera match my screen as we talk over the phone. So as I rotate the model on my screen, Mark and Sarah would be able to see this model rotate and change on their screen. If I put in a cutting plane and I cut off half of this building to expose the interior core, when you have a live section box, I can do that in the live review session, and this is all part of Team. And again, virtually any file format can go into Team for viewing and commenting purposes. And the nice thing is it about the devices themselves. So we originally developed Team, so it was running on iOS apps like that and like this. And because it runs on the iOS app, it was an easier job for us to get it into a web portal on your desktop. And you notice the web portal can run on any device as well. So whether it's an Apple device or a Windows-based device, it's a web portal. It doesn't matter. And what's coming out is the Android side of things for Team. That's going to be out in the near future. But the goal of the development team was that the interface needs to look practically identical across all devices. And that's true in this case here. And that makes it a lot easier to learn. So to sum to sum it up, what's included when you get collaboration for Revit? Well, you get this ability to do central file work sharing in the cloud. You get access for each license of C4R. That person would gain access as a license of Team as well. You get this Communicator chat window inside of Revit. Inside of Team, there's this model management and versioning capability that's built into Team. And then for the IT side of things, anybody that's managing your Autodesk subscriptions, you'll find that the subscription to Team and C4R are manageable to activate and deploy. You're allocating a license per individual, and then when the project is completed, you can revoke that license so that you always have a maximum usage of your licenses that you purchased for the people that need it when they need it. So if you buy 20, you can push and pull licenses as you need. My recommendation is do it for the duration of the project. Don't try to short cycle your purchasing process by, well, we need 20 licenses for the project, but Caesar said we can push and pull, so we'll only buy 10. That doesn't make sense, because your activations, you want to make sure that the people need it, they have it when they need it. So buy it for the duration of the project and then revoke them as needed. And the cost of it, this is where I want to position a very quick ROI for you. When you buy it for a year, subscribe to it for a year, it is an $800 investment, and it's not an expense, and it's an investment. But the $800 per person per year can pay for itself, really, if you get a benefit of a workflow or a benefit of tying in central models together without having to always upload and download central files. If C4R saves you 10 minutes per week over the person of a year, it'll pay for itself as it relates to your project. So accessing the project data, enhancing communication through Communicator, and using Team to connect the entire team, that's what C4R is all about. So let me fast forward now into the gist of it all. So I'm inside of a project, and let me take a look of one of my 3D views just to show you what this project is all about. And some people say I have an accident, but I think everybody says the word about the same. So this is my project, and it's living locally on my computer. What does it look like? How do you know you've got C4R installed, and what does it look like to do this process, or is it process? This is a central file. It could be just a local, non-central file. I know that I've got C4R two ways. When I say File and Open, you'll see that C4R put the addition of BIM 360 Team in my shortcuts. And because I'm registered with BIM 360 Team, I'm going to use my Autodesk sign-in to expose those projects to which I'm accorded to on the cloud. So there's my login, and this is my password. This is my password. Make sure not to use my password. It's ... And now that I've logged in, it says, okay, Caesar, these are the projects that you have responsibility into. This residence project, you are also associated with the skyscraper project, this research project, and so on. So you can reach right out to the cloud in Revit. Because you have C4R, you can open up files right from the cloud. Without C4R, you would have to download those files like you're doing today. And that is always so interesting to do and fun. But here, that's the first piece of C4R. The second is the Collaborate tab. This exists in Revit today, but now when we go to make our collaboration in the cloud, we click on Collaborate in the Cloud. And because we are signed in, we can then see those projects that we're associated with. So for example, this is a skyscraper project. This is part of my November hospital. No, we're way past November. We are about to be in May. So let's do April hospital. And if other people want to link in this file, we can make it clear that this is the architectural file. So we are going to push and create the central file by clicking on Initiate. It'll do a few things. It'll build a central file if this is not one already. It will start to upload it, and you'll see when it uploads it to the cloud, it will start to download it. And when it starts downloading it back to locally cache it, you'll see that it'll change the naming convention up here because it's saying, okay, Caesar really wants to start working on this central file as his own local cached file. So it'll rename that file up here and open it for me directly. So in this case here, this file is about, I think it's about 30 meg. I keep forgetting because I switch between files. So it'll go through this exercise, save the locally cached file, and then from there, open it up on my screen. So while it's doing that, not because it's not entertaining to watch anybody's screen with the wheel turning, I'll just let it go through that really quickly, and I'll open up what team looks like firsthand. So signing into team. Simply sign in. There we go. There's my password. There's my A360 Drive account. When you activate your team account, you'll actually have access to both your Drive and your team account. While I'm on this window, it's actually really important to describe to you a caution. I would caution firms from using A360 Drive for the purposes of sharing data across their firm, because A360 Drive is meant to be your personal cloud storage space. And what ends up happening, I had this happen recently where a customer said, hey Caesar, we had this guy leave our firm, but with him leaving our firm, he also took his profile with him because it's his single sign-on, and we had all of our content on his A360 Drive account. I said, okay, well, I'm glad he left on good terms because he could push that stuff quickly. You can push data from Drive to Team. So keep that in mind. So any files that exist in folders on Drive, you can push it to your Team site and safeguard that. So that's what I would recommend. Team starts with 500 gigabytes. Like, the intention from Autodesk is to give you as much storage as you need. So you start at 500, and from a Team site, you can pool that data together. So if you own 4 C4Rs, you could in effect pool a hub totaling 2 terabytes, which is not shabby. So in this case here, you can see my collaboration for Revit. It uploaded to the cloud, and it saved the locally cached file to the cloud. I'm going to go back to that in a second, but I thought I'd give you a taste of what Team looks like on the cloud site. Here's my hub. This is 500 gigabytes. Within my hub, I'm associated with 6 projects. And this is the project right here, the skyscraper project that we just sent that file to. And inside of skyscraper project, this is administered by me, and you can see right here, I have 4 different project members. I have a viewer, I have an editor, and I'm the project admin. And within this project site, somewhere we'll see my hospital file here in a second. But this is the thumbnail view of all of the projects, files that I have for consumption. Coming back into Revit now, let's just kind of finish this off here. So within Revit, we save this up to Team. There are some functionalities within here which are really important to recognize. We have this manage cloud models as well as publishing settings to the cloud. Because it's important to know that your project architect or your principal, from an architectural standpoint, I used to work on multiple sheets at once. So you can see right here, I would start up a few sheets in Revit, and then I would start creating sheets, and some sheets would be complete or reasonably complete, and some would not. The publishing settings are built into Revit for you just to publish those files, or sorry, publish the sheets to which you want people to see. So for example, out of all of these sheets, I only want to share these sheets and the 3D view, and I save this out as a publishing set, and I would save and close this. Now within Revit, when it comes time to do something, this is where I'm going to, I would modify something like this wall, and let's say I'm just going to pull it up or decrease its height just to show that I've got a change. When I click on the Save to Central, this Save to Central would let anybody using Revit increased wall height. This Save to Central only lets this change be seen by the core Revit group. This is not going to be published, and it'll only be published when I tell it to be published. So this lets you work on Revit throughout the day without worrying about people seeing these like incidental changes here or there. Engineers don't like to have changes happening from architects on a minute-by-minute basis. Only, give me a change, an updated published set at the end of the day, Caesar. That would be great. And that's fine. This is why you can publish now quite successfully. So coming back to the Collaborate tab here in a second, to publish, this was only saved to Central. This is not the publishing. Coming back to Collaborate, this is where you would come back to Manage Cloud Models, at the end of the day or at noon, and we're going to go into Skyscraper. And here's my April Hospital Arch. You can see right here, publish latest versus, look at this one. This one shows you this symbol, publish latest, versus this symbol, which means the latest has been published. So when I click on this symbol, it says you're about to publish just what you said you're going to publish, the 3 sheets in the model. Do you want to do this? And it gives you a handy information button to learn more about it. And it says, now that you've clicked on publish, close the window, go back to work, or go for your coffee. The Communicator is built within the same Collaborate tab. So Communicator, launching that is what we call a modeless window, which means if you have multiple monitors, you can put this Communicator palette on the adjacent monitor on your 2 screens. And having Revit running in one window, when you're in a project, and if there are other people who are online, they will show up in this project, and they'll have a little green bullet beside it. When you have other dialogues which have taken place, you can see I have a chat notification waiting for me, and it'll bring you right into that chat window on that other project that you're working. So this other Autobahn project, you can see the chats that have been going on, and this is the history that I was referring to. So from a group, this is my project group for Autobahn. My most recent chats are right down here, or sorry, up here. They'll keep the most recent ones at the top, which makes sense. And you would just jump into this this chat. And I put in some previous. Here's my screen capture, and he says, "Do you have the latest structural model?" And I can respond to Joe saying, "At Joe, yeah, I do." Now, this is where you can also attach some the screen captures. So yes, I do, and attach a screen capture, and let's send him this right here as the screen capture. Boom, and sent. So that's Communicator. I can see the synchronizations. When you synchronize, it says that it's completed or not, like you see before. The increase in wall height, that little comment that I typed in, very effective communication, obviously, through the tool called Communicator. Okay, so let's fast forward into team now, because this is where the life of the project lives. So pretend now I'm no longer Revit, the Revit guy. Pretend that I am Joe Architect. I came into this project. Actually, let's go to another project, because this one here, just, you know, this is my loosey-goosey project where I just kind of throw files at it just for demos like today. But this is the one project which has a great workflow built into it. So Project Architect Joe, that's me. I go into this project. I can check out the activity of this project right through this pane. So what's been going on? Okay, well, there's been some files uploaded here back in February. And in March, there's been a bunch of other files. You can see, hey, there was an exhibit, a DOC file, and an Excel file. So, you know, put this in your checkbox of things that team does. Team uploads any file type, but in certain file types like docs or doc or an Excel or DWG or RVT, we'll let you view and view those files natively through team. And we'll control the version control. So for example, this document exhibit, you can see right here, it's on version 4. Scrolling down further, okay, there's a JPEG. You can see the JPEGs. But, oh, there's been some commenting going on. So, you know, Caesar's been posting a thing to Caesar saying, at Caesar, what percentage completion? When you start doing these at Caesars, it'll email me directly to my Outlook mailbox, and I can respond right out of Outlook, and it'll put my comments right into the history of team. So it's got a tie into Outlook as well, or Gmail or whatever, right? It sends files and receives files from both of those email applications. So this is the activity, but let's scroll through our files here, because there's one file that's we've been pounding on. So this one right here, this is version 4 of a published view. So when we check out this, remember, you know, the Revit people only publish the views that we want to see as architects and engineers. They don't necessarily give us everything. And what I'd like to share with you is more of a learning, you know, to learn team is very easy, but I'll give you like a tip here. When you open up a file, don't just come to this screen that shows you the graphics. I really recommend that you click on the overview of this file. The overview button will give you a file-specific activity thread. And the activity thread shows you there are only 4 sheets in this RVT file, which we're about to view. And out of this 4 versions that we have of this one file, you can see there's 7 comments associated with these 4 versions. And then with version 3, this is the one that I really want to focus on. Version 3 has 8 comments, this one. This is the one I really want to focus on. Comment number 17. Let's click and open up this comment thread. So it grabs Revit, the actual Revit file. It doesn't grab Revit. It grabs the Revit file. It opens up version 3 of this Revit file. And now we see, oh, okay, the architect, Caesar, said, hey, I want you, this is like class A typical workflow. I want you to add the wall and door in the corridor, right? And move the exam room walls to the right. Classic, you know, workflow. And then Caesar, the project architect, says, yeah, I approve this move, do it. And then Caesar, the CAD guy or the BIM guy, the Revit guy, says, okay, I'll do it. So this is the threads, and I can come back on saying, you know, I did this move, go and check it out. So when I upload this file again, it becomes version 4 of version 4. Right within the context of these versions, you can compare past versions. So let's compare, and this is me acting as the project architect now. I want to make sure what happened in this program, the client program, is still good to go. So please compare this ground floor, version 4 versus version 3, and bring it on. So team in the background grabs 4, grabs version 3, puts them together, and this is the best thing since sliced bread. It will do an object-to-object comparison from these Revit files. You can see the taskbar is loading them up right now, and it is comparing object-to-object data, and it's going to tell me what the changes are. This is like super fantastic. These are buttons which highlight the modified items. When I turn this button off, it'll hide those items. You can see now that this is the Revit door and the wall. And sorry, let me hide these items again. You can see how it's showing me the basic wall and door. And when you click on it, it'll highlight those objects here and tell you in blue, this is a door. And it has been changed. You know, this element was added in version 4. But this next example is what really crushed me when I first saw this about a year ago. I'm always interested in spatial information. So for me, when I scroll down here, I want to see version 2.3 of Exam Room. And in version 4, we gained 36 square feet. Well, what was it in version 3? When you click on it, it shows you the room object where it used to be and now where it currently is. Like, that is super fantastic. And the nice thing about this compare tool is that it does it across disciplines. So you as the architect can try to figure out what the structural or mechanical engineers did, because each of their disciplines now will show you a comparison across electrical, structure, piping, and mechanical. And of course, this is just, you know, this is an extra window. When we're done with it, we close it. But all of your tools for red line markup are here. The commenting, if we wanted to add an old comment, like I'll just show you in this version here, version 3. Let's say that we wanted to add a red line of markup. This zoom level will allow me now to put on a comment right here at the sink. See my crosshairs? We can put it right here at the sink, and it'll do a screen capture of this zoom level and put it up here like you see right here in my comments. Okay? So that's how you start to use the commenting, the red line markup, and so on. Pretty straightforward. There's the comment that just showed up. Right? Move the sinks. So let me kind of go back to my home screen. And I'll give you a chance. I'll give you a minute. If you have any questions, please type them into the Q&A dialog box on your webinar. And what I'm going to do is come back into here, and I'll give you an extra minute to type in your Q&A questions. And while I'm waiting, let me just highlight a few more things that Team does. So Team, you can click on Upload, or you can just simply drag and drop files into this window for uploading. Or folders, you can drag and drop them right in here. Team also has a great wiki pages, and the wiki pages is all about this project. So the wiki pages can, we can create new wiki pages like meeting minutes. It's fully formatted. You can format the wiki page to read however you wish. This could be a job file location reminder. So any new people that come into projects, you can make a wiki page to say, hey, go to Z drive for, you know, specs. Go to Y drive for Revit families. And I say that, you know, go to Y drive for Revit families, but that reminds me, you could use Team and put your Revit families in a folder right on Team. And then you can highlight this. You can do all kinds of formatting right through this wiki page. So the wiki page is great for project information. And then lastly, within the Team environment, you can do calendar, or lastlies, you can do calendar invitations and job discussions all through here as well. So let me put the binders on, and so I'll stop the presentation for myself, and let me ask Sarah if we see any kind of questions in the Q&A panel.
Yeah, we actually have a few good questions here.
Sure.
So what type of redundancy backup is going on in the cloud? How much info could you potentially lose?
God forbid, hopefully none. The backup, the cloud services, just to give you an idea, are hosted on the Amazon Web Services. So the AWS is where the data resides, and it's Amazon. They do their data backups, you know, rigorously, probably more rigorously than any of us would ever do in our lifetime. So the data is residing there. You know, these files are regularly backed up. No, some people though feel that, hey, Caesar, you know, that's good and all, but I still want to back it up to my server. There's certainly that capability. So you can grab any of these folders, and you can see the download link here. You can download a folder, you can download a file or a series of files to your own personal servers within your own firewall. That's entirely up to you. So good
Great.
question.
Are you able to delete a chat? Bruce Johnson had this question. He says he knows that you can save excerpts, but how about legal document control?
Yeah, if we're talking about Communicator, so back here inside of Revit, we had Communicator. No, so be careful of what you say. Like, it's going to show up inside of the Communicator window, and this is not customer facing. This is just team facing. So deleting the chat, I'm pretty sure you can't delete it. You probably go through the settings and possibly delete all the chat and comments. The other side of it, if the question was referring to your team site, and when you go into team, I was showing, let me jump into this one file right here. Here's a soft Word document as an example. So it's going to load soft Word, and if I go into the overview of this document, the view and comment, oh, I've got my other system set up. So the view and comments, yes, when you do a view and comment on this document, you can post it and post it. And after you post it, if you said, oh, shoot, I didn't want to say that, you could delete it right out of here. It's up to you if, what you want to do there. That's, you know, you could safeguard yourself there to say, that was stupid, I shouldn't have said that. Yep.
Okay. Could the documents also be linked to BIM 360 field as well?
Ah, good question. So yes and no. So the documents that are sitting in team, those will always reside in team. But there is a capability if you're using field, and for those people that don't know what field is, it is basically a construction administration punch list equipment tracking beast. It's a workhorse, and our general contractors as well as architects and engineers use it for punch listing and tracking equipment. So with Glue, you could actually share the model from Revit through to Glue into field, and then you could start doing punch list observations as an architect with the model right on your iPad in the field. But typically, if the question is saying, hey, Caesar, can we share the models from team to field? The answer is no. You have to go from Revit to Glue, and Glue is the mechanism which shares at the field. Glue, for those people that don't know that tool, it's a BIM 360 service. It lives in the cloud, and it's basic. My elevator pitch is it's Navisworks in the cloud, and Glue is the medium to which it transfers the model to field.
Great. So Francisco Perez, he mentioned that when Revit is in full screen, he never sees the chats, like there's no notification. Have you heard that feedback before too?
I haven't, because like I said, the window itself is modeless, which means this could live on a second screen. Be careful, because it is modeless, if you do run two monitors, it might be sitting on the second monitor. And if you unplug the second monitor because you're not using it, this might still be living in screen display number 2 without even knowing it. But I haven't heard about the Communicator not launching or not being seen. It does go to the back. So when I'm running Revit full screen, it does go to the back. You can, if you ever find it again, you can dock it down here, I believe, somehow within the Revit environment. I
Okay.
believe.
Are you able to assign markups to specific team members?
Can't specifically assign the markup, but you can bring it to their attention. So going back into team, let me open up a file that shows a little bit better here. So I'm going to go into this July Revit file, and I'm going to go and I'm going to create a comment here in a second. So for commenting or discussions or calendar items, I'm pretty sure those three components right there, you can use the @ sign to bring it to call it out to somebody's attention. So for example, let's open up this comment. So this comment was in this specific view perspective, and when I overview this comment, this is where we're going to reply, and I'm going to say @ when I start typing Caesar, you'll see, here it comes. As I start typing the first name, but with the @ symbol in front of it, this is where you can pick up on the person's email address. So @ruest.gmail.com. I'm getting a little bit of a system lag right now, but that's just on my side because my computer is overheating, my poor thing. But I'm going to receive that as a Gmail notification. It's going to show up in email for in my Gmail account. And from there, I could respond to it right from Gmail, or from my Gmail account, it'll contain a link to bring me right back to this screen, this exact screen with this exact markup. And I know that, you know, in that respect there, I know it could be assigned to me.
Great. And that kind of answered her other question that does the markup translate back into the live model?
That's a good and common question, and the answer is no. So the workflow that you would take here is you would have this screen open. The markup is meant to stay in team, and you would basically have Revit open at the same time, and you would change the Revit model to suit whatever the comments are inside of team. So that's the workflow with team and Revit. Let me twist it a little bit more just by adding one more thing. We didn't talk about glue today, but I introduced glue to you just a second ago, saying glue is like Navisworks in the cloud. If you use glue to do model coordination, you know, clash detection, and let's say that you find that there's a piece of steel hitting part of your architectural wall. With glue, you can assign a person to a clash and notify them at the same time. And that's killer, because once you notify a person, say, hey, Caesar, your steel is hitting on my wall. Would you mind changing it or seeing what we can do about it? The glue notification and assignment is very powerful, because as a structural engineer now, that has been assigned to me, and directly through Revit, this might be unbeknownst to most of you, in Revit there's an add-in for glue that has a clash pinpoint mechanism. Navisworks has this tool, but so does glue. And clash pinpoint would let me find that exact piece of steel that's hitting interference with that wall. That's a killer workflow.
Okay, great. And Joe Truitt asked, does each user have versioning?
Yeah, actually, it's not at a user level. It's at a core functionality to team. So anybody that has access and editing permissions to team, meaning editing, meaning I can upload files, as long as it's the same file name, it doesn't matter who's sending it up there, it will version automatically. And as I demonstrated a moment ago, the versioning will be kept track of. This solves, I've been into a number of architects' offices recently, this solves a whole historical challenge that architects face every time they go to version a file. They want to make sure that for legalities purposes, for historical posterity, that we track what's been going on. And so we'll version automatically, and you can promote past versions if you didn't want to have it overwritten. So there's a real safeguard here.
All right, when you publish the model, how does someone like a contractor see those published items? Are they just a viewer of the model with only those published sheets in it?
That's exactly correct to that question. So the shortest answer is yes. When the model is published, you can see when I look at the overview of this model, the overview of this model is the true Revit file, but it's a published view of it. And in this case, I published 3D view. I published an east view. These are not sheet views, right? These are the actual views in Revit. But you can see I got a little bit lazy because I didn't make any sheets yet, but I wanted to get some people started on viewing my model. I only chose to publish these views out of the model. And when I email the contractor, and I can say, take a look at the published views of my model. The contractor, number one, has to have a license of team. And it's really cheap. It's just for the contractor, because they're not using Revit, it's only 120 bucks a year. So it's quite affordable. And now when they get access to it, the contractor, with you giving them permission to this file, can then comment and mark up. You can restrict downloading if you wanted to. If you don't want them to download it, you can put a password protection on this file to prevent them from downloading. So it's very robust in that sense as well.
Can you limit certain team members to access only parts of the project?
Yes, and through the permissions level, as well as the folder structure that you create, through a combination of permission level, the folders you create, and even maybe password protecting things from being downloaded or viewed, you have quite a dynamic control over your entire project.
Right, and his follow-up question was just how do you invite the team members, but you just literally just type in their email address, right?
Yeah, within the context of the project. So out of these 6 projects that I showed on the screen, you dive into the one project in concern, and right over here on this palette, you'll see my details and activity. Invite the people. So in this case here, you can say email addresses or names of people you'd like to invite. You can separate them. So I could say, okay, I want to invite my colleague Mark. So out of my entire project list, I can start their short part of their name. I know that Mark is not in my project directory at all, so I can say Mark Smone at Autodesk.com. And you can select their role as editor or viewer. And if you don't know what the difference is between the two, you can click this question mark. Viewer, editor, or project admin. Pretty straightforward. Contractors, I'd probably say give them the viewing and discussions. Or if I've got a good relationship with the contractor, make him an editor. And then once you're done, you can say, yeah, Mark, he's going to be an editor, send the invitation. So you can see we could have separated with commas and so on. The workflow is when I invite him, Mark is not automatically in the project. He is notified of the project. Mark has to accept being part of this project, and when he does, you can see he will be added. I'll just refresh the screen here. Mark will be shown up as a pending project member. So that's one of the ways of, actually that's the only way of bringing people inside of your projects.
Someone had a question for automating backup capability instead of having to manually download. Is that possible?
It will be possible moving forward in the future. We don't have that feature built into it right now, but there will be a mechanism in the future where you can help to automate some backups. So for example, I can paint historically, here's my historical example, and you guys can read between the lines the way you want to. If you remember Autodesk Buzzsaw, we had a feature called sync, folder sync. That feature may or may not show up inside of BIM 360 team through some kind of a syncing mechanism for an automated process of backing up.
Okay. Are non-360 users able to upload files and collaborate?
No. This is where if you wish to have those people do those functions of uploading and downloading files, well, hold on. Uploading, they need to be part of the core group. They need a license. But downloading, so for example here, if I want to share this Revit file with somebody, I can do it through this link. This link would allow me to copy this link and send it by email. They would, they don't need team to be able to grab the file at that point there. But if they want to start doing commenting, redline markup, and measuring, uploading, then they need team to be, they need to be part of team.
Just one or two more questions. So what happens if you get disconnected from the internet for an extended period of time?
So specifically with that question's geared is really geared at collaboration for Revit. Mm-hmm. So within collaboration for Revit, there's a couple of things. If you're working on the central file and the internet goes down or your network goes down, or it's happened to us where our services go down. We're striving for like 100% uptime, but our services have gone down. And by the way, when you do subscribe to Collaboration for Revit, I would point you to the health dashboard. The health dashboard is a service that we provide to let you guys know, is it us or is it you? So if you find that Collaboration for Revit is down, so all of our cloud products are featured through the health dashboard. I'm happy to see that they're all green right now. And so if you figured the internet was down and it's us, and you came up here and you just saw green, well, maybe it's not us. Maybe there's something on your side or your service provider. So when this might happen, you might find that Revit freezes. What I usually recommend is Revit's freezing because Revit is trying to ping the central file to see who's changing what now. So there are intermittent pings, and they are very small, they're very light, they're not heavy pings. But the pinging happens so that maybe if Mark is customizing this wall, the ping is to tell me if I go and click on this wall in Revit, it will prevent me from selecting the wall. So if the internet goes down, it will stop me from selecting this wall. Revit will seem like it's frozen, and I can close Revit. But usually I say leave Revit open just for a bit, just until the service comes back up. If the worst case scenario happened and it's down for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and you're wondering like, this is nonsense, you can close Revit altogether. And if you go to your user profile, so under Windows, you'll have your user profile, you'll have your user identification name. It's a hidden folder, and that's where you're going to find your locally cached version of the central file. You can open that up, continue to work, and then you will have to remake the central file at a later date. So it's there, it can be worked on, but my usual recommendation is if you're in the middle of doing some major changes, give the internet a chance, give the web service a chance before going through extreme measures of opening the locally cached Revit file.
Okay, and then in just an essence of time, this is the last question. Yep. So if all team members have yearly licenses, does that still apply to the project license?
So good qualifying question. So let me make the licensing model clear. When you subscribe to Teams, this website, or if you subscribe to Collaboration for Revit, which includes Team, whenever you do this $800 subscription, you have unlimited projects, and you start at 500 gigabytes of storage. So that means the second part of this question is not relevant because there's no limits on the project. So you folks, you have a year, unlimited amount of projects, go at it.